So my name is Nicholas McLaughlin. I'm a first year in the Francis College of Engineering here, mechanical engineering.
My name is Zachary Blau. I'm a biomedical engineer, first year as well, and also in the Francis College of Engineering.
And we are here with LazarusPod, an innovative solution to water scarcity. So in the world right now, there are a lot of problems. Things like poverty, hunger, but perhaps the most startling of all is water scarcity. And the thing is, water scarcity doesn't mean not being able to fill up your pool or not being able to take a long shower. It literally means struggling to survive. And sometimes it affects us in ways we don't even realize. Water scarcity proliferates disease, encourages terrorism, it destabilizes governments, it hinders agriculture, and it stops an economy right in its tracks. So, the thing is, right now, there's 700 million people in the world today that suffer from water scarcity, according to the UN. That literally means 700 million people do not have their daily water demand satisfied. And this problem's not getting better. By 2025, the number is supposed to be as high as 1.8 billion people. And there are some solutions to the problem today. Things like water wells, rain collectors, or even desalination plants try to relieve some of the stress. For example, there are 20,000 desalination plants in the world, and they provide water to 300 million people every day. But the problem's not getting better, it's actually getting worse. So we need something innovative. We need something clean, easy to make, and something that's going to be cheap for a lot of people. We need something like fog nets. These are giant sheets of woven plastic mesh that are able to pull water out of the air, condense it down, and bring it for our use. There are some companies in the world that make these today. For example, Aqualonis is a German company. They produce the Cloud Fisher. The problem with this, though, is that it costs about $850 per square meter at the cheapest. And there's only about 50 of them in the world. So we need a better way to get this into the world for a lot more people. That's where we come in. We're the LazarusPod. We have a three-part solution to fix water scarcity. Not to fix, but to try to relieve some of the stress. The first part is water capture. We have a giant fog net that wraps around our LazarusPod, and as water from the fog or from rain is collected, it'll drip down to be collected. The second system is an automatic farm. As the water is dripping down, fabric will be able to draw some of the water out from the fog net, and draw it into some planters. So as long as water is being collected, there will always be moist soil for the plants. The third system is a solar still and purification process. This essentially just means that once the water is collected, it'll be re-evaporated and condensed down to be stored. This makes sure that there are no pollutants, contaminants, or bacteria being stored in our final storage system. The best part about the LazarusPod, though, is that every process is natural. That means there are no demands for power for this at all, which also means no operating costs. So we have two ambitions with the LazarusPod. The first one is to build and deploy a prototype, and the second one is to sell our idea. So we estimate that our idea will cost about $2,500 a prototype to build. And we want to build that here, break it down, and then bring it somewhere in the world to deploy. But the best part about deploying this is that you don't have to look far to get somewhere that needs water. Flint, Michigan, for example, is still without clean water. And for us to deploy our product there, we could springboard off the resulting media attention, it's a high-profile name, and then promote our brand even further and pitch it further. Second ambition is to sell this idea. There are a lot of companies in the world that try to tackle water scarcity. Things like Aqualonis, Charity Water, Water.org, FogQuest, or Work of Water are all big names in the water industry right now trying to provide relief for people with water stress. And once we try to pitch our idea, we think that our idea could really make the difference for hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of people in the world. We really believe that the world is facing a lot of problems, and that people are dying every day from water scarcity. And it's really our job to revive them. Oops. We're LazarusPod. We thank you.
Do you mind backing up a few slides? Only because I'm ignorant to some of the terms you were using.
Sure.
I think there were pictures of what you were talking about there, right?
Yes. Yep.
So the top right, that's
This is a fog net.
That's a fog net. How does that work exactly?
So you know how you get dew on your window in the morning?
Yeah.
It's the same process.
Same idea.
But the idea is that instead of dew just staying there, it drips it down so that it's collected. And it works really well near coastal areas, works really well whenever there's water. But the thing is, too, is that if we were to go to this map of water risk in the world, you can't see it down here, but red's high.
Yep.
A lot of the high-risk water-scarce places are near water. So this fog net solution will be really effective.
You can't do that in the desert.
No.
Exactly. Well,
Right.
the thing is that we would ideally store the water,
Yeah.
and then somewhat close to these locations that would be of interest, and if we could figure out a way to transport it. However, if we're on the coast, obviously you have coastal effect or a lake effect, and that would help produce some of the water density or moisture in the air that would help collect with the fog nets.
So the million-dollar question is how much water can you collect in a fog net?
Yeah.
And is it a feasible amount of water to grow a plant?
So it's about 20 liters per square meter in the best places.
Wow.
Per square meter.
Square meter of mesh per day.
And
Per day, okay.
Per 20 liters per
That seems like
day.
a lot.
per 1 square meter. And our idea is about 30 square meters. So that means we're pulling about 600 liters per day on best, in like the best scenario.
That's impressive.
Huh.
That's a lot.
You
So
wanna
you're
go
gonna
to
store
that?
it somehow.
Yeah. Well, then my next suggestion was, I saw some pictures there about, and I asked you a question, you talked about growing in soil, but, you know, I'd be going straight to hydroponics. It uses 95% less water.
We thought about hydroponics, that was our initial attempt, but then we also wanted to try to simplify it as much as possible.
Sure.
We were kind of afraid.
Because that's what you're showing right there, right?
Uh,
But, sort of.
So actually what this is
Is that a wick?
Yeah, it is, and then it just pulls the water up into the soil.
The issue with hydroponics is that it requires different pHs of the water and the rocks for different plants, and it's extremely high maintenance because you have to measure the pH every day. And if we were to implement it into a place, we'd have to take time teaching these people about this, other than just maintaining the overall structure
Mhm.
if they need to.
Yeah.
And it's also a lot more expensive than traditional potting soil methods.
Okay. And I'm also seeing your still that you've got set up there.
Sure.
So you're planning on working with salt water then?
No, so the water that's going to be collected is fresh water in the air, but the problem is on the fog net, sometimes there are contaminants that come down, and just distilling it effectively is going to
Okay.
make sure that what's getting stored is clean.
I got you. Lisa, could you have some stuff
Yeah,
you said?
you know, I was curious, because there's 7 cities in the US right now that are on the verge of serious water issues. One of them being Miami, because the fresh water is being contaminated from the sea levels, because the sea levels are right. So all the aqueducts are contaminated. I'm just wondering if your still might work there. There's Salt Lake City's also having an issue. There's a bunch of them, there's 7 of them in the US right now. I'm just curious to see if they fall in the areas where your fog nets could be used, because it's kind of a quick fix.
Does anybody sell a desalinization unit for a house?
Yes, but they're also
Problems
expensive,
with it.
and they require power.
Problems with desalination, because they don't know what to do with, it's not even power, because there's a lot of solar desalination
Mhm.
up there, but the biggest issue is what do you do with the residual stuff?
Take
Because
out.
it just totally contaminates the environment and the ecosystem. That's the biggest issue right now. I mean, Saudi is probably the biggest exporter of water right now. It's almost as much as oil. They are the water kings of the world, but they're burying it in the desert, all that residual.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Water is new oil, in a big way.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, these guys are definitely are onto the problem.
Yeah.
Huh.
I do a lot of work in water, so it's like crazy.
Very nice, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's great.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What's your next step?
So if we were to get funding for this, we want to build a prototype here and then bring it to Detroit. Not Detroit, I'm sorry, Flint, Michigan, to try to set it up. And then after that, I'm going to try to market an idea and sell it.
Nice.
Is it, when you say it Lazarus Pod, is it a
Yes.
thing? Is it a like,
So it's going to be a 10-foot by 10-foot sphere. And in this sphere is going to be a circular mesh. And it's going to shape like a funnel. And this funnel is going to drip the water down. And on the surface of the cylinder are going to be planters. So the solar still is going to be in the bottom to be collected. So it's
Interesting, so,
a pod, sort of, but also trying to keep with some aesthetic look.
And I think one of the things that we were discussing were tiered planters, so you couldn't, so it wouldn't just be around the base on the ground. If you had like a second level allowing for more plants. Obviously, that's not a necessity in some of these places, but let's say we were to install it in Oman, which I believe is where we had the 600, that estimate of the 20 liters per square meter. If we were to install it there,
Yeah.
then the planters would be ideal. So it would be optional for certain parts. And then I think eventually we could, if we just sold some of these parts as well, instead of just doing the actual product, it would just be another option. But ideally, we'd like to sell our full product.
And you're gonna sell it to,
These big name companies that also try to attack this issue. So there are companies like FogQuest that make fog nets, but they don't do it in the three system structure that we do. So they only attack one of many issues. And our driving motivation has always been trying to get as many issues under our belt, trying to solve or help or mitigate as many as we can. And they really only do water capture. They only collect water. That doesn't mean that they purify. That doesn't mean that they use it for irrigation. It just means that they have water that they didn't use to. So things like Aqualonis, which I mentioned earlier, a German company, makes fog nets, but they only make fog nets. Just this, and it just collects it. But our ambition is really to try to get more systems into this, as many as we can, to run naturally, but without power at all.
I wonder if there's something patentable in what you're proposing.
So
But one of the big guys can steal it too.
Right.
We've also thought about trying to patent it, but that's going to cost
Yeah,
more than what we're able to at least start up with right
of
now.
course.
Have you guys looked at the patent database at all to see if there's anything out there?
Not extensively, no.
That's something you may want to do, because you can get some pretty good ideas from it. The USPTO site is free, and you can search under keywords, and it will give you some ideas of who else is out there. It's also a good way to look at things that are missing from the industry, like you guys have identified, where you're coupling a collection device to an end use of the device, which is nice. This is great idea, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
That's it?
Really good. You guys
Thank
all
you,
set?
guys.
All right, thanks, guys.
thank you.